Joe Budden interviews Maul's op, Brandon Jennings.
Brandon Jennings, yes sir, yeah nigga.
What up?
Don't be cool now.
That's right. On a recent episode of the Joe Budden podcast, Joe would interview, or at least try to interview, Brandon Jennings. He appeared on the show, and this is of huge significance because Brandon Jennings and Maul had a big fallout. If y'all don't remember, Maul and Brandon Jennings used to be as thick as thieves. The two were kind of like a NBA homie type friendship, and they would hang out to the point where I believe Maul would end up living with Brandon Jennings in Detroit. But eventually the two would split apart, and it's unsure or unclear why that was. And even during this conversation, Maul comes up. They start reminiscing about back in the day when they used to play basketball, and some guy that
But we used to go up there, me, him, Marcus, and
they mentioned somebody, and I think along the way Brandon Jennings says, I got no problems with dude. But a couple months ago, it did seem like Brandon Jennings had some big problems with dude when he was talking about fighting him on the Gilbert Arenas podcast.
Tell Maul
did you
that I
just
want to
see
get in
that?
the ring with
He
Maul.
had a wide open-
one round, 3 minutes. Let's see if he want to get down.
A fight?
Yeah, I want to get down with Maul.
Man, you gonna get tired, dog.
No, 1 round, three
gonna get
minutes.
tired.
Let's see. I gave him a Jesus piece, and now he walking around thinking he Black Jesus. Shut
Who?
up, Maul. Crashing out for Drake. Drake don't even know you. Now you know Maul. All you gonna do is go call some.
Oh!
Go call some.
So as you can see, there's a lot of tension, a lot of built-up frustration as to what happened. And then there is in the past where Maul would explain why him and Brandon Jennings would fall out or how they did.
A friend of mine tried to get me and another former friend to speak, and it went left quickly.
whose fault? Yours or the friend?
The other person, not my. It's a lot of ego, and I don't really care to talk to the dude again.
So as you can see, there's a lot of emotion in the room, but I think we need to take a step back and just look at this episode because it was quite odd. Brandon Jennings starts the episode in the Queen's Flip chair, and you think he's going to be in the episode, or you think there's going to be at least a 40-minute segment where everybody kind of, interviews Brandon Jennings. But about 30 minutes in, he just disappears. And even in those 30 minutes he was there, it was quite awkward. He wasn't really saying much. He was just kind of looking funny. I'm not going to make any aspersions, but he kind of looked like he was a bit zooted. He just looked like he was like, like in the higher place of comprehension, if you get what I'm saying. And like I said, he just is gone about 30 minutes into the interview. Joe makes this weird announcement about Brandon Jennings is here. He might be here at a later date. It was just weird.
Brandon had to make a run. We'll continue to speak with him on a later episode. We're going to get back to dog pounding real quick. Shout out to Brandon Jennings. Check out the Patreon soon. That's my man.
Now, what is Joe's intention in having Brandon Jennings in the studio? Because if you look at that, I must say, it wasn't interesting. Like, Brandon Jennings doesn't seem to be interesting. When I watch him on Gilbert Arenas' podcast, it looks like a terrible interpretation of what a sports athlete Potter should be. And his appearance on the Joe Budden podcast does nothing to dispel that notion. Only time will tell, but I wanted to pose this to the audience. If Brandon Jennings is on the podcast, what do you think is the purpose? Do you feel like Joe Budden is just trying to make things uncomfortable for Maul? Is he trying to make things look a certain way? Is he going to, maybe not ask Brandon Jennings directly about what happened, but just, take a couple of sub disses? Don't you hate when guys stay at your house and they want to leave and they want to do their own thing? I don't know, man. It's a lot of emotion. And, I said this in the Rory video. It's a lot of baddie behavior. This is nothing different than a reality TV show plotline. When the enemy clicks up with the girl her bestie that she fell out with. This is exactly that. But one thing I wanted to pose to my audience, do you think Joe Budden, he introduced Maul to Brandon Jennings? Because I remember them telling a story in the past about how, they went to see Brandon Jennings in the street ball, in the they was playing like street ball, and that's when they met Brandon Jennings. He was like, yo, I'm gonna go straight to the league. I don't need to go to college. And I wonder if Maul met Brandon Jennings through like a facilitated connection, and eventually Maul would, just start hanging out with Brandon Jennings more and distance himself from Joe Budden. Because I've always found it odd that on episode 437, Joe Budden said, Maul abandoned me. Well, if when Maul leaves Joe Budden, the compound, the complex, whatever that joint was called, he ends up hanging out with Brandon Jennings, and then he ends up coming back to Joe Budden to be on the podcast, and that's around the time he starts distancing himself from Brandon Jennings. Maybe everybody feels like Maul is just using people to stay with them and then kicking them out the whip. Just abandoning people. Because the thing is, when Maul leaves, it seems like a lot of these folks are upset, they're hurt, they're mad, and they just feel super hurt. They love this guy. And a lot of people call me Glazer. Oh, why are you riding for Maul? Why are you inheriting the beef? I'm telling you, I've seen these episodes, and it seems like a lot of people get close to Maul and then be shocked when he walk out that door. They be hurt. Joe was in tatters. He was on his podcast. I still want to talk to Maul. I want to talk to Maul without Rory in the room. Why is Maul aligning himself with Rory? Remember that whole thing about, you look crazy riding for Rory, Maul. All the things we've been through, all the mountains we climbed, all the tears we shed, the jail nights spent together. How could you do that? So there's a lot going on. Anyway, to wrap up, let me know what you think about this. Do you think Joe Budden is being nasty by even having Brandon Jennings on? Brandon Jennings kind of has the profile of a guest Joe would never rock with. But I guess, he feels like he has to have him on. Did Brandon Jennings and Maul fall out over Tough Crowd merch? Like, did Brandon Jennings ask Maul to promote Tough Crowd on the pod or something like that? Because I'm trying to think about why this happened. I'm trying to think what's going on. Very fascinating stuff. I think podcasting is such a study of male dynamics and male friendships, because guys never really talk to each other, and the only time they talk to each other is about, women, sports, and when they podcast. It's hilarious. But I wanted to end this video by Big Loon, man. Big Loon has been, anybody knows Big Loon. He has the It's Up There podcast, and he did something special for me. What he did was he decided to inherit a beef I'm in. And I'm going to leave it at the end of this episode, because Big Loon is truly somebody I admire, I respect, and hold in the highest regard. Check out the It's Up There podcast. He is writing for me on this one, and I think it's dope. With that being said, follow me on Instagram, The Stop TV. I don't really, post there much, but I'm going to start posting there more. And also follow me on Twitter, The Stop TV. Last but not least, hit up Joe Budden Network, the Reddit. That's right. Joe Budden Network is about to hit 20,000, and we're about to be, I know we're not going to be the biggest sub-wise, but we are probably been the biggest over the last few months as far as engagement. That's crazy to me. And I think a reason why that is that we kind of allow a lot of posts. Now, but if you come up there to disrespect me and attack me, that ain't happening, big dog. I call the shots. Everything I say go. But if you want to talk about the podcast and pod theories, we not going to take down any post unless, don't disrespect anybody's family or try to be too violent. But all theories are welcomed. All types of discussions are encouraged. Joe Budden Network on Reddit is where you need to be. All right, y'all. Here's a word from Big Loon.
What's going on with you, Danny? It's Big Loon from the It's Up There podcast. And I just had to tap in with you because I noticed you've been out there holding it down when dudes try to get you to go left. And when you dealing with somebody with the magnitude of motion that you got, there's no other place to go but to stop. So I just wanted to let you know that you can't be out here parlaying with these niggas got nothing to lose. Cause we got everything to gain. I know you want me to speak on these dudes, Danny, but I gotta keep it honest with you. I'm not familiar with these dudes. These are failing podcast guys. We street generals. And I don't even like to give these type of dudes any type of clout because you give a plane runway, it's bound to take off. I do my market research. And when I do market research, I look into the game. These dudes' biggest interview was with Joe Budden. My first interview was with Little Baby. I can't talk to these niggas with nothing to lose. And when you look at my channel and you do your own market research, look at my channel. I got one of the healthiest channels in the game. You could Google it. I never bought a view. I'm not like these failing podcasters out here. And when you do your market research and let these failing podcasters get their bullshit off on you and spread these narratives, you have to ask yourself, why would they say that? I had to look into that. Why would they call me Big Sloth? I even went and did market research on sloths. I didn't find much. I can't say much about these dudes, Danny. I'm not familiar with them. I'm familiar with Rory, I'm familiar with Maul, and I'm familiar with the Stop. Just let these dudes know we ain't looking for no smoke, but we'll put a fire out on them. Because at the end of the day, we business folk, not a bunch of niggas that'll handle the business on folk. And I don't want to give too much spotlight to these guys, man. I don't want to give them no more clout. And just shout out the people that with me. It's love, it's Big Loon, and remember, gargle it, handle your business, money one.